Hey guys, it's Ruby. It is October 23rd, 2016, and we are here with the 3 years and 3 month update on the DIY trickle sump filter with the PVC overflow. So first of all, as you can see, something you notice over here, I built a cover for the fish tank out of wood. It didn't do the best job, but it looks pretty nice. So let's go ahead and take a look at the overflow. I'm going to move these aren't screwed in, they just come right off. So here, let's look at the fish tank. One thing I did is I put a shop light in here that's just resting on the wood. It causes a lot of algae because it's the wrong spectrum. If I would do this again, I would put in one with the right spectrum, then maybe I could try growing plants. I tried growing plants a bunch of times, but they never survived. So probably I need ones with the right spectrum of lights. But let's take a look at the overflow. A lot of buildup on this. It's been a while. One thing you could see here, this is a little cover from a soda bottle. We had snails and baby fish that were getting sucked into the sump, and so I just put this over it so that water, it's not really acting as an overflow as a skimmer anymore, but the water is still overflowing down into the pipe. Also, before I had a cap on with holes in it. I took that off completely. One of the things that we had trouble with is calibrating it to make sure it was the right size, because one thing you see is that as the water overflows into it, we'd have too much water going in, and it would block up the siphon. If there would be too much water going in, it would basically create a siphon effect, which would suck in all the water and then kill our siphon. So instead, we got rid of all those holes in the cap, and then we're okay. We put that cover on it. Actually, one thing I would do completely different is I would change this from 3/4 inch PVC pipe to just fully an inch, because we did have issues in the beginning with too much water flowing in. If someone puts their hand in to mess around with the rocks or something, then the whole water raises up and it's a little too much. Actually, the truth is, even though this worked really well, we only really ever had one catastrophe where the siphon braked over 3 years, so this works really well. I do recommend this, but the truth is I was thinking it might be a lot easier to just drill the tank if that's possible. If it's not possible, this is really a good option. We've had it for 3 years and it's been working really well. On the outflow back into the fish tank, I elevated this outflow pipe, so now it's splashing in. If you look over here, there's a lot of aeration happening, which is really good. If we take a look back at our sump, so one thing on the sump, I originally had like a 10-gallon fish tank as the sump, and I increased it now to a 20-gallon canister, like a storage container, because the water level would get too low for the pump, and we'd end up having to refill it a bunch of times. So instead, we just got this one, which is much bigger, holds much more water, and that way we have to fill it up a lot less often. Let's take a look in here. As you can see, there's a lot of gunk on the bottom. This has not been cleaned yet, so we're gonna have to do a clean, remove all that material. Inside the filter, before I had like a filter media quilting batting on the top, then filter media, and then the sponges, and now I changed it to just quilt batting on the top, and then just all biomedia. So we have sponges in here, which are a little hard to see, and I put in some plastic forks for some extra bio material. The quilt batting is excellent. You don't need anything other than that. The quilt batting is a really good fine filter, and it catches everything. You just have to end up cleaning it. I would just replace it. I wouldn't even clean it. But the water is trickling down here. I don't know if we can actually open this shelf. Let's take a look here for a second. We'll take a look at one of these. Too bad. It's a little hard to get in here. Once we had everything working, we moved it up against the wall, and now it's we don't really access it too much. Looking at the water here, the water quality is very good. We have a couple of pregnant fish in here, 2 yellow ones, and there are a lot of babies in this fish tank. A lot of baby fish. You can see over here. So we've had fish this whole 3 years that are still around. There's a big one in the back that's a little hard to see. A lot of baby fish, a lot of snails. We brought some plants from the store that had snails inside of it, and the tank was filled with snails. And it seems to be really good. I don't have a water quality tester here. We brought it to a fish tank store, and they said it was excellent quality, and that's the experience we have had with it. The only real maintenance we ever had to do is just add more water. We never actually took any water out, but we did get a big algae buildup. So ideally you have plants that combat it, but instead we've just been using this just algae control. To be honest, I don't know exactly how it works, if it takes out the nutrients or what, but Fish seem to be fine with it, and it's really making maintenance a lot easier, so we just put a little bit of that in every once in a while. But other than that, overall thoughts, definitely this is a really good system. Before we were using it, the water, you couldn't even see through it. Now it's very clear. It's been clear for years, except for the algae that we had problems because of this light. But definitely an inexpensive way to clean the system. The sump tank at the bottom really works very well. We just have to maybe siphon out some of the water, do one big change, but other than that, very little maintenance. A lot of biomedia, which is good for the nutrients, and relatively simple, relatively inexpensive, and works really well. Some people said that maybe we should have made the water line all the way higher so you couldn't see. I think that's just a matter of preference. I don't mind it being a little bit lower than that. But I guess that is the update. 3.5 years, works really well. If I would do it all again, I would maybe get a quote to just drill the tank, to be honest. Just drill a hole in it and forget this whole PVC overflow thing. But I mean, it does work. It works really well. But if you want to go for it, go for it. And if I would do it again, I would change it to an inch PVC pipe, but don't really have to. One person asked in the comments if there's a power outage, then how does it maintain the siphon? So what's important to understand is that in this pipe over here, the water comes into this overflow, goes down the pipe, comes back up, and then it goes down here. And then from there, it goes down into the sump. Now, in this section right here, you can see the check valve, water was sucked out of it, and I sucked it onto this tube and then tied it up so no air gets into that. So this always has water in it. So when the electricity gets turned off or we get a power outage, then the pump stops working, so the water level gets down a little bit more. And then the water stays in here. The water doesn't flow out of here. There's always water inside of this. That's kind of how the magic works. And then the other thing which I mentioned before is that instead of having the outflow under the water, and then you have to worry about a reverse siphon sucking up fish, because we had that before where the power went off and a reverse siphon back up this pipe, and we lost a fish or two that way. So instead I just have it elevated a little bit, and it's splashing, and that's doing a lot of aeration for me. A lot of people put bubbles in because they want to have oxygen dissolved in the water, and what I found over time is that by putting bubbles in the water, you're not really adding oxygen to the water. Really what does it is when you create a movement on the surface, that's what mixes the oxygen in. So when you have this splashing in, depending on your preference if you like the sound or not, that's really where you get all your oxygen in. But overall, it's been working very well, really happy with it. And that is the 3-year update. Bye.